you have, first winter, and then you have false fall, and then you have second winter, or it's fall spring, and then you have second winter. And so the one thing I do remember is we were in spring like yesterday, and now it almost feels like a second winter. Anyway, but it's thank you again for being here. Again, maybe not memorable, but maybe a quick meeting this evening. So again, welcome tonight. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance to the U.S. flag by Councilmember Craig Pearson, followed by the Texas Pledge from Chief of Police Larry Berg, and then finally invocation by Mayor Pro Tem John Holmes.
Join me in the pledge to the U.S. flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Join me in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, just want to thank you for this community, our great city, and also especially for our staff from top to bottom, and hope that they continue to serve with a service attitude, whether it's fire, police, water, sewer, city manager, whoever, that they focus on service and build this community and make those that feel all our neighbors and everyone as loved as they can be. Help guide and direct this council. I just ask for your guidance tonight, and also help us to love and then love some more. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. We will call this meeting of the City Council on Tuesday, February 10th to order at 5:32. A couple of little things to remember. We do have tomorrow a retirement ceremony for Barbara Bozon. So if you're not aware of that, that's tomorrow. Barbara Bozon will be retiring and stepping down from her role in the Central Texas Housing Consortium. I think I said that right. Okay. Friday is the 13th. So for any of you who would like that, Friday is the 13th, but the 14th is a special day. Just FYI, if you haven't looked at your calendar, there's still time to buy. So, all right. First item on our agenda is public comments. Anyone may speak and address the council for any issue in which the council does have some purview. I do have one listed on this. If anyone else wishes to speak after Rucker Preston, then they may do so. So Rucker Preston, name and address for the record, and you got 3 minutes.
3 minutes. Thanks, Council. My name's Rucker Preston at 2013 Hilltop Street, speaking on behalf of Belton ISD tonight. You guys, Councilman Holmes, your prayer is perfect because I want to speak about the staff. Chief Berg and our fire department always do an amazing job in our city. And I just want to thank you all for what Public Works and everyone in the city did during a couple of weeks ago when we had ice all over our roads. Not just for everyone in the city around our residential roads and feeders and collectors, but for our schools. We had a lot of ice, and so we needed some help at times. And we called upon the city every single time school district asked. The heavy equipment came and helped with some ice breakup, and we couldn't do those kind of things without the partnership from the city of Belton. So very appreciative for always being top notch and doing a great job for our city and our community, and thankful for the partnership.
Thank you. Always have enjoyed the partnerships, and one of the strongest ones is BISD and Belton. It's always been a great partnership. Mm-hmm. If anyone else wishes to speak, now's the time for public comments. If not, we will move on from public comments to a recognition. The next is to recognize the City of Belton's Lena Armstrong Public Library for being the 2025 Achievement of Excellence in Libraries Award from the Texas Libraries Directors Association.
Thank you, members of the council. I'd like to invite Matt and Amanda and Laura to come up. We're really excited to be here tonight to present this award. The library has earned the 2025 Achievement of Excellence in Libraries Award, and really, really special. If you saw the note in the council agenda packet, there's about 516 library systems in the entire state, and only 101 have received the award, which is about 20% or so of the library. So we're very, very fortunate to have a great team, and they do an outstanding job going through some exciting visioning right now, strategic planning, you know, my love. And, and so just appreciate Matt's leadership and working with the library. I want to present the award to Amanda and then just ask Matt or Matt, if you want to make any comment. You get a picture, okay?
I'll make one quick comment. I invited Lauren Gommert here. She's our library coordinator. I was not here for the period that this award covers. So it was important to invite somebody who was. They did a lot of work. All I had to do was fill in the boxes and click submit. So I want to thank them for their hard work for the last year.
Well, I would like to ask a question to have this discussion. Does every library get this award?
You have to submit for it and you have to be a member of TMLDA. So if you're not a part of the Texas Municipal Library Directors Association,
It has certification.
right? Mhm. Yes, yeah. So there's certification requirements to be a part of that entity, and then you have to go ahead and submit, and you have to meet several metrics. You know, not just having the books, right? It's the programs, and it's the service levels, and so you have to go through and prove all that. You submit pictures and you know, all your data from the year. So they did a great job of keeping the records, and all I had to do was kind of backfill and talk about all the good work they did.
Yeah.
So.
I've heard it's fewer than or 1/3 or fewer that are actually public libraries get this award. So it's not
Yeah.
like everybody gets it.
Right,
Well, anyway,
everybody gets it.
which is great. So thank you guys.
What a transformation in our library. It absolutely is beautiful. The activity down there is impressive, and just we all should be proud of that facility. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Expanded hours. We're really excited about that as well. More to come.
Okay, more to come.
Thank you. All right, congratulations.
And for those who use the hike and bike trail, you can read all about All of You, which is the book that's posted on the little signs along the hike and bike trail. Who does that? Who does the little books on the hike and bike? Do we? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for doing it. I'm halfway through the book. I need a couple more miles. Yeah. All right, next is recognize the City of Belton's Finance Department for receiving the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for the Government's Finance Officers Association for the 34th consecutive year.
Mike.
Almost as good as Salado.
Amanda.
Oh,
Christine, come up. Y'all come up. Again, we're fortunate to do this award annually, but again, we never take it for granted. It's certainly something that's very, very exciting for us. And of course, the process for that, as you saw in the packet, and independent reviewers have reviewed and examined the budget and found it to exceed all expectations and achieve that Distinguished Budget Presentation Award from GFOA. This is the highest recognition form in government budgeting. And what I want to particularly call your attention to this time is, in addition to just the award, the following special recognitions were granted to the City of Belton for the capital program, capital improvement plan, and strategic goals and strategy. So very, very exciting to have that achievement. And I just want to present this to Mike and his team and ask you to say something if you'd like. Okay. All right. Very good.
Thank you.
You're gonna have to hold it while you talk.
I will. I'll put it on my wall. Thank you, Mayor and Council. The award for the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award, I'm sorry, is meaningful because it is the transparency of our city finances, and it's the story of our city finances. It's not just a bunch of numbers and columns that nobody will care about. A budget's intended to tell the community how you plan on spending their money. And I think our goal is to improve our budget document every single year. I think we've done that. That goes in no small part at all to the, without the effort of these two ladies beside me. Christine is your senior accountant. Amanda Cox is your assistant finance director. They are the future of your finance department. And I say that because both of these two young ladies are about to become certified government finance officers in the state of Texas. Which is a task in of itself. So we couldn't do it without their work. But thank you very much for your support. We're starting already FY27 and we'll keep making it better.
awesome. Thank you.
Go for 35.
Man, if the budget was so good, let's just run it next year and skip all those meetings.
Yeah.
Copy and paste.
Yeah. I think so.
All right, items 5 through 8 are our consent agenda. These items can be enacted by a single motion by the council. If they wish to remove any item and discuss it separately, they may do so at this time. For the record, I will read these in the minutes, and then the council can take appropriate action once I've finished reading. Item 5 is approving the minutes of the previous meetings of January 27th workshop and January 27th city council meeting. Item 6 is items related to the May 2026 election, adopting an ordinance ordering the May 2nd, 2026 general election for council members place 1 and 2, authorizing an agreement with Belton ISD for conducting a joint election, and authorizing an agreement with the Bell County Elections Department for lease of election equipment for the May 2nd, 2026 general election. Item 7 is adopting a resolution nominating the city's candidate for the board of directors of the Central Texas Water Supply Corporation, who will be City Clerk Amy Casey. No, sorry. Okay, sorry. You were highlighted in my little notes, so I just read the. I just saw. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, Freddie Robles, Public Works. Thank you. And item 8 is adopting a resolution authorizing the submission of an application for membership in the Central Texas Water Alliance. Right, those are the items.
If we approve items 5 through 8 is presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion before we vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It passes unanimously. All right. Item 9, receive a presentation on the annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2025. Mr. Rogers.
Good evening, Mayor Council. I'm very excited to give you our annual financial report for FY 25. I have with me tonight Ms. Christy Davis, who is holder of JRBT, our auditor. She's going to kick that way.
All right, good evening. Thank you for letting me be here. I always know it's Valentine's Day when I'm here. It's the audit. And I also brought my own book with y'all so that you can read later. But in all seriousness, thank you for letting me join tonight. I have just more good news to continue to share with everyone here. So I'm always excited when I can do that. Just a few things as a reminder for the audit. So these financial statements that you've received a copy of are the responsibility of management. And then we come in and do a set of audit procedures with standards that we have to follow to make sure that the information that they've provided to us that we've put into this format of the financial statements is complete and accurate. And that anybody that gets a set of those financial statements would be able to rely on that information, and you here in this room can make decisions for the city based on that. And so some of those audit procedures that we perform are kind of listed here. One, we do things on a sample basis or a test basis that we like to refer to it, and looking at different account balances, transaction streams, particular transactions that even happened during the year, and working with Mike and his team to look at support, review any kind of documentations, whatnot, again, to make sure, again, that information is complete and accurate. And so I do stress test or sample basis because otherwise we might still be here doing the audit. So we don't look at 100% of everything. Part of procedures are looking at accounting principles that are used to record transactions within the ledgers of the city that makes its way to this financial statement, and making sure those accounting principles are following the standards that you are required to do for accounting, and making sure any estimates that have been made are reasonable and also kind of in line with what we would expect based on our experience with cities. And then lastly, stepping back and just saying, does everything within that financial statement appear properly presented? Speaking of significant accounting estimates, we do spend some time and energy on those because typically these have some amount of complexity to them have some amount of judgment involved in them. And really for the city, it relates to these net pension and OPEB liabilities that you're required to record your share of, including any outflows and flows. So what's different here is management's not really setting those estimates and doing those complex calculations that is coming from TMRS, but we're still required to audit that data and make sure what has been provided to the city is complete and accurate. And so as a result of all of those audit procedures, we did provide what we call a clean or unmodified opinion that the city's financial statements for its most recent fiscal year end, September 30th, 2025, are fairly presented. So that's good news. Worth a clap. And so also just to mention briefly, there was a new accounting standard that the city did have to adopt. You can read about it in that report related to its compensated absences. So I just want to mention that because I do appreciate Mike and his team learning the standard, viewing the standards. They came prepared with those calculations. And so that was, again, was part of our audit procedures to review those and make sure they got properly completed. Our audit also extends past just the financial statements because there are certain laws and regulations that the city must adhere to. And again, those compliance would be the responsibility of management. And so in particular, we have to look at compliance with Public Funds Investment Act and also state competitive bidding requirements. And so based on the audit procedures we perform over those, including reviewing controls done internally to ensure compliance, we did not have any instances of non-compliance to report. So the city materially met all of those requirements. And then lastly, you did have federal expenditures over the limit that did require what we call a single audit or compliance with uniform guidance for the year. You'll see here on this slide, the program that was tested, I call it SLURF for short. It's a very long name. It is one that we have tested before for the city, and that's based on a risk assessment and also looking at the total expenditures of that particular grant to the total federal award expenditure. We have a whole set of requirements that we're required to test that are provided to us by the OMB through that uniform guidance. And again, the city complied materially with all of those compliance requirements, including controls to ensure that it has materially complied with those. So continued good news there. And then lastly, I didn't really speak to internal controls over financial reporting. So we're not required to audit those. But we do consider those in our audit procedures, looking to see that controls kind of from initiation of the transaction all the way to its placement in the general ledger is working as it should, that it's been properly designed and implemented. And so on those procedures that we do, I do not have any internal control deficiencies, which we would identify as a weakness or a significant deficiency to report. So as I said, lots of good news. But that's my piece.
Thank you.
Okay.
Don't run off.
I won't.
Okay, so as I tell people frequently when I talk about annual reports, we spend a whole lot of time preparing an annual report, loads of information in this 150 so pages. But in the end, most people don't care. So what I encourage you to do, most of those people, but what I encourage you to do as a governing body is there's a section in here called management's discussions and analysis. This is only about 10 pages, starting on page 5. If nothing else, that's a good place to go to get a good understanding of our financial condition. The other that's quite exciting is the statistical section at the end. It's actually unaudited, guys. Shh, don't tell her. But what that gives you is a 10 years worth of history. So you can kind of do some your own trend and are we improving or not? Good information there. So I was not going to let you go without me telling you kind of how we ended up for the year. So bear with me a bit. The city financial position as a whole, this is all in full accrual, includes everything except EDC. Total net position increased by just over $1 million for fiscal 25. You can see that 87 million of our $125 million worth of assets, our net position is capital assets. $8 million in restricted net positions. That's the amount that has external restrictions tied to it, like your special revenue funds, some capital project funds, et cetera, fall under that, leaving almost $30 million unrestricted net position, again, for the city as a whole. But let's talk now about some individual funds. So general fund revenues for the year were just over $24 million. Property tax went up about $585,000, but you'll see sales tax revenue was essentially flat over FY24, going up about $56,000. So total revenues 24, but expenditures increased $1.3 million for fiscal 25. There was a lot of personnel related to that, some capital costs, et cetera. So in the end, the general fund drew down fund balance by $665,000. That's a little bit more, but in line with what we planned to do for fiscal 25. We ended up with $9.2 million in fund balance in the general fund. 8.3 million of that is unassigned, which means we can go do with what we want. That number is now 33.6% of budgeted expenditures, so down from 37.9. We have a debt service fund. We paid just over $1.2 million of principal and interest payments during the year. That fund balance is $161,000 at the end of September. That's gone up from the previous year because you'll remember we're transferring money from the general fund into the debt service fund to make those payments for the fire engine that we purchased with that recent bond debt. So it's, and this first payment is due in February, so we have to have some balance in there. That's why there's now a balance. We have two TERS related funds, an operating fund and a capital projects fund. Contributions into the operating fund increased almost $400,000 over FY24 to $3.4 million. And it spent $3.1 million, 3.1 million. And most of that 0.1 that's in expenditures in the operating column end up being revenues in the capital project fund because of the transfer from that. So TERS operating transfers money into the TERS capital project fund to spend then on projects, which it did, $1.7 million during FY25. And what it spent its money on were those projects that you see on the left, the Connell Street, Spring Street Bridge and sidewalk projects, really good projects that the TERS is contributing towards. Okay, enough of that. We have a couple of other governmental funds I just want to mention. Our hotel occupancy tax collection was down slightly, $22,000 over fiscal 24. Expenditures were up considerably, 37%, but that's exactly as we intended it to do. The hotel occupancy tax fund balance increased $168,000 to $1.2 million. On the right column is our ARPA fund. We basically have spent down all of that money now. Only $9,900 remained at September 30 of 2024. Moving on to our bigger funds, our water and sewer funds. So this is more than just one fund. This is all of our water sewer operating fund plus all of its capital related type funds kind of smushed together, ported together. So operating revenue, there was $221,000 of operating income. Operating revenues increased $916,000, but operating expenses increased $2.1 million for the year. It ended up, in the end, changing net position $48,000. That's basically net income for all of the funds together. Increasing our reserves slightly, unrestricted net position for all of the water and sewer funds together is 18 million. But of that, there's about 5.2 of that is in the operating fund. That's the one that we put the percent of budgeted expenditures in. And that's 40.3% of the expenditures is where we ended the year. Our other enterprise fund is our drainage fund. Again, this is drainage and its capital project fund. This fund has been having some difficulties over the last years. An operating loss of $99,000 for the year. Total net position decreased by $83,000. But what's really driving that is depreciation expense. And it's so, I won't get into that right now. So it's just, you don't want to draw down reserves due to operations necessarily. We intended to do that in this fund to some extent. But we're gonna have to do a study on this one to see if we need to increase revenues coming into the drainage fund. We ended up with $306,000 of unrestricted fund balance, which is 46% of budgeted expenditures. There's some, I'll get into that one day with what's causing that. We have two internal service funds. The Information Technology Fund and Building Maintenance both drew down reserves as we intended in FY23, in line with kind of what we expected. Nothing terribly exciting there. The big news comes from EDC. EDC's net position declined $1.8 million as a whole with its operating fund and its other funds. But that was due to contributions of assets to the city. So the big projects that were completed by EDC are West Avenue D and South Pearl Street, and then some other projects, but that was like $5.1 million of infrastructure assets that once they're completed, those assets become property of the city of Belton, so that there's a transfer of that value to the city of Belton, and then the city will maintain that for the point on. So it's really that contribution to the city is what drove that decline in net position. So really, that's good news. So that's just the way that works. They ended up with $21 million of fund balance, if you will, net position. 11.3 of that is capital assets that belong to the corporation. The operating fund had 5.7 million, and then it's got a capital projects and an incentive fund, another 4.2 million of fund balance in those funds.
And so to be clear, the capital assets are owned property, land, or is it
Yes, sir.
a combination of
The
land?
what stays here is primarily the land that it owns, business park assets and that sort of
Okay.
stuff. But the infrastructure, like say Avenue D and South Pearl, those
Yeah, no,
are
I see,
city
sir.
assets.
I just
city
was gonna.
assets.
just
That's
clarify.
correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah, the net position is.
If you have any questions for Christy, I'll get out of the way. If
Right.
me, just let me know.
This is just a presentation, so there's no action. Any questions or clarifying?
Mike, there was a change in procedures for this year. Are there any changes coming for fiscal 26?
As far as statements,
Procedurally changes, like you pointed out, we'd already applied those in terms of time off bank and that sort of thing. And
there's always something that they throw at us. The hurdle that we had this past year was implementing compensated absences, and that's already a complicated matter. That doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense, and it just got more so. But we have to follow the rules, and so what happened was when we implemented the new standard, the liability for compensated absence went up because we had to start capturing things like sick leave and things like that. And other, yes, vacation, yes, but nothing, no, I don't think there's anything GASB related that's big. Hopefully not.
Accounting change, there could be some presentation changes for just in the financial reporting for those. He referred to them as enterprise funds, but the water, sewer, drainage. There could be some presentation changes that impact the city next year, especially in the section that deals with non-operating revenues and expenses. They've kind of wanted to further break that out into some other categories. That wouldn't be an accounting change at all.
And Mike, related but not the same, were there recommendations that came along with the write-up on the award that were things that they were recommending that we consider doing differently going forward?
Absolutely. As far as presentation goes, so the budget, for example, we also submit an award for this report, our annual comprehensive financial report. But each one of those is reviewed by a panel of reviewers, and with each review or with each reward, if you will, they give us feedback on ways to improve. And so we try to implement some of those suggestions. And that's also led to some of our special recognitions doing some of the things that they recommend that we change. So budget is particular is something that is a continual improvement process. We try to make it more transparent, more readable, understandable, and that. And so, yes, there's always that.
No, we wouldn't want you to get bored.
No, please don't let me get bored.
Is there, just a side note, something that was on my head, on the HR aspect, I know there was an issue where cost of health insurance went up this past year. Is that, how long are those contracts?
Our health insurance contracts last 1 year.
They're all what-
Sometimes it has a like if it'll have a rate lock in the second year. So there might be a multi-year component to that, but the contract itself is an annual contract.
Okay.
Is that correct? Human resources? Yes, sir. And that continues to get more expensive. You'll see that coming up next with this budget discussion.
I noticed that the water loss over the last 4 or 5 years has been incrementally going up every year. And it's over since 21, I think we've gone from 8% water loss to 15% water loss. Is that?
That's a good director of public works discussion. If the director of public works.
Council, there are some components of that that we have been finding as time's moved on, and we feel that those start to die back down, and it's been pressure related issues and things like that. But I think this next go around through the audit, you'll see that has decreased. So,
And I can also attest that some of it is a billing issue that we've fixed as well, because where that comes from is the volumes that you bill versus what's been metered, and yeah. And so some of that, we've had some issues that we've corrected. Scott and his team brought to us. And so we've implemented that. So yes, that number should also shrink.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Good answer.
Thanks, Scott.
Matters neither created nor destroyed. It just moves somewhere else. So the water's still somewhere.
That's correct.
Right.
It went somewhere.
I will say and you made the one comment on the drainage fund. I do know, especially when we have some of the rain events, that we probably could do a better job of policing our waterways, at least the entrapment areas, just trash pickup and mowing and just we do a pretty good job of that, but I do know that we're probably at the edge. And so we probably just justify a review of that rate to make sure we're doing that. Any other comments or questions? All right. Thank you.
Great job, Mike. Thanks to you and your team.
Thank you.
All right. Item 10, consider an ordinance amending section 38.18 of the zoning ordinance related to high profile monument sign height on properties with Interstate 35 and Interstate 14 frontage. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'd like to talk to you about some recommendations that we'd like to make to you on pole signs and high profile monument signs. Currently, we're limited to 20 feet in most of the areas along 35 and 14. We do have some higher signs that were adopted with the Imagine Belton standards, which are on the west side of the highway between the interchange and the Temple city limits. We currently calculate the height of the sign because we feel like we need to dig into that a little bit better. From the elevation of the sign on the private property to the relationship to the main lanes of the highway. So for the first example that I want to give you is a piece of property that is lower than the main lanes than the highway. And so let's say in this particular instance, we have a piece of property that's 5 feet below the current sign height is 20. So we'd allow the difference between the main lanes and the elevation of the property. That's the difference. So we would have a sign that's theoretically, well, not theoretically, it would be 25 feet. A more practical example might be this area where the property is below the main lanes of the highway. This kind of conceptually shows you how we would calculate that. The sign is at the elevation of the property. And then the main lanes are 15 feet above the property. So that would calculate the sign height in that regard. So the overall height of the sign could be 35 feet if they decided to go that high. Alternately, if it's above the main lanes, then there wouldn't be any adjustment. It's just 20 feet. And here's an example of that where this piece of property is about 25 feet above the main lane. the height of the sign would remain at 20 feet. So above the main lanes of the highway, that sign's going to be 45 feet tall. So that's kind of how we get to that calculation. In determining our recommendation, we did some research on existing ordinances in the area, and we found out that about the average height of the signs is feet, and you know how you calculate the average, you drop the highest and lowest values, and then you take what's left. And for the actual sign heights, we surveyed some signs, where you see all these signs in the area. We did the same thing. And we came up with a different number. Of course, that's a 64-foot sign. So ultimately, we decided that it would be good, you know, based on the evaluations that we had and the certain geography that we were in to make those recommendations. So I'm going to zip through these pictures. You may remember them from the last time. Just some examples of some signs that we have surveyed in our analysis. And so we land on our recommendation page here, and I'll explain this a little bit more. In the downtown areas from Temple down to Loop 121, essentially, we're suggesting a 100-foot tall sign. And then anything west of the interchange of 35 and 14, we're suggesting 50 feet max. And then south of 121 along 35 down to the southern property lines, we're suggesting also 50 feet. So in that area on the southeast of I-35, as you can see where the red arrows are, we're recommending a maximum of 100 feet. And as you may recall, I mentioned that on the north side of 35, we allow up to 100 feet on that side. And so we're recommending a similar height on this side of the highway. On the other side of the highway, west side of 35 from the interchange down 21, we're also suggesting a 100-foot height. That may be consistent with the other areas of that on the other side. So from the interchange onto the west side of town, we're suggesting a 50-foot high sign, the maximum height. And then finally, as we go south from 121 down to the southern city limits, we're suggesting a 50-foot maximum height. This picture was put in to kind of give you a concept or a relationship example to kind of gauge what feet looks like. There, I got a picture in there that helps me to tell you that that's a 40-foot sign. And then this is another one that helps you maybe to see what those heights kind of appear to. It's very difficult looking along the highway, as you might know, to kind of figure out, okay, what's 50 feet, what's 20 feet, what's, you know, whatever it is. And so it's difficult to see. Some of those pictures that I showed you earlier kind of show taller signs that are kind of in the Corey Central Street area. But it's really difficult to tell what a really tall sign looks like. It's kind of easy to see what a 10-foot sign looks like because you can stand next to it and say, oh, it's 10 feet. Anyway, so just a little bit of background. We've gone through P&Z. They've recommended approval based on these recommendations. We had a public hearing back in September. We regrouped and kind of streamlined the recommendations. And we're recommending at this point in time that you consider approving the recommendations that we've suggested to you. As always, we're very appreciative of all your thinking on these projects. We understand that it is largely an aesthetic issue, but you know, we started with the objective position of, you know, based on the research. So we want to present that to you and see where you want to go with that. Helps.
Right. Thank you. This will be an ordinance. It is not a public hearing. So any comments or questions from council before making a motion?
Bob, could you go back to the one slide that showed the heights that we have and the average?
The actual heights.
Actual heights and our recommendation, I think, was it 70 or something? Curious to know.
This one right here, sir?
I believe, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Next one.
Next one. Oh, the actual heights. Okay, good.
I mean, if you throw out the variances, does that drop that?
No. Well, you know, we threw out the tallest and the shortest. So that's the variances.
In
So
the
the-
previous slide?
The same.
Mhm.
The same.
Every time, 50 feet.
What,
Yeah.
what is the, I have two
We got some
questions.
motors in there.
What, is this for the sign height? Does this include billboards and business signs? Is this
Does not include This is strictly the monument signs and the pole signs.
Why is it that y'all feel that on I-14, it should be half the height of I-35?
It's.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Half the height of,
It's 100 feet in the core areas, and the remote areas is 50 feet on 14 and 35.
is that what?
So South 35 and West 14 are shorter. As you get into town, they go up.
They're less dense. Yeah, so that's my question. Why in those areas are you recommending 50 instead of the same?
Well, the recommendations for the downtown area is consistent with the Imagine Belton did. So, you know, that's kind of pegged with the existing standard. As we go south, you know, we're just stuck with the analysis that we have here. So there's no more than just the recommendations on the research. So did I help you there? You know, since the Imagine Belton standards are higher,
Yeah.
and we've got some history of the higher sign heights, we figured say, well, let's stick with the higher signs, you know, because of the topography in the downtown area. And once we got out of the downtown area, we just thought 50 was appropriate because of that.
And I'll real quick, Luke, for those areas that we're talking about, I-14, South I-35, currently those are all 20 feet right now. That's what we allow. So
Yeah.
we're trying to kind of gauge. We've always had that 75 feet in the bowl, we call it, where the creek kind of happened. Imagine Belton came in, it added 100 feet as a allowable option. So that's kind of why we just kind of crept up to 20, because that seemed to be enough variances coming through. But not obviously all the way to 100 in those areas. So.
I just think we're seeing significant changes with the interstate system and the ability to see a sign and exit. It seems like exits are much further back now. You checked the TxDOT's roadside sign that said these restaurants and gas stations are available, or you check an app. I just don't think the visibility of 100-foot sign and exiting to go to Starbucks or Whataburger is doable anymore. Much less very appealing to me personally. So I think and I think Salato's dealing with this right now. Some issues down there about the height of their signs. And so I'm just I don't think the tallest wins now or gets the traffic maybe that they used to. There was one instance where I think a gas station on South I-35 we made it an exception and taller sign because they wanted the visibility, but you won't be able to exit in time to see the sign. Just personal opinion.
Bob, talk to me a little more about the difference. What we're deciding tonight, if we decide in what you've recommended for 100 feet, if we decide on something lower than that, how does that relationship work with the Imagine Belton standards? If we let's say we say, okay, we're not going to do 100, we're going to do 75 or 50 or something. We have in the Belton standards, we have 100 feet in that area, right? So would what we're doing tonight trump that, or would we need to change Imagine Belton? How does that work?
No, we wouldn't change anything in the Imagine Belton standards. So we're just talking about the other side of the way and the outlying areas. So we're just dealing with that. Hopefully that kind of addresses that. Now, how would it look? You know, the central downtown area, uptown area, that's 100 feet. The transition is 40. As I mentioned to you, it's just kind of, you know, it would work fine, whatever height you.
So if you'd go back to the map showing where it's 100 and where it's 50 for the recommendation.
Yeah.
So what's in Imagine Belton is essentially the northwest side of I-35,
Yes,
the
sir.
whole green strip.
Yep.
So if we change something tonight, that's going to stay at 100 feet, right?
That's good. There, yes, sir. Yeah,
And we
We're
could,
sure.
if based on the discussion tonight, we say, well, we don't feel good about 100 there, we could have another discussion to change the
Absolutely.
ordinance for the Imagine Belton sign height, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Another question, if you'd go back to the actual sign height bar graph.
I'm starting to regret putting all these pictures in here. now.
Sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. We can get there.
That one. Nope.
Next one.
That one. The the two that we have that are over 75 feet, one is Bucky's and Temple, and one is the Quick Trip in Salado. So in Belton, we actually don't have anything over 75 feet currently, right?
We have one on Corey Drive somewhere. And is that on the list?
It-
Yeah, Whataburger. Whataburger.
I saw the Corey on the other, you have got two average.
Yeah. And we've got Burger King, which is over, what, yeah,
Those are
70,
54.
75. So you have to put the, that's 60 to 80, so the increments in 20.
Okay.
Okay, so you're a little bit taller than what you might be looking at.
So I hate to ask this question, but I'm going to ask this question. You showed us a graph to show height above grade and height of the sign.
Yeah.
And so you had for nomenclature, you showed an A, but you didn't show a B. So I just want to clarify, when you say sign height, are you saying height above grade or the actual height of the sign?
The height above grade. So you measure from the ground.
So these are not sign heights. These are height above grade, which we're defining as
sign.
so a 105-foot sign isn't a 105-foot sign. It may be an 85-foot sign depending where it's placed on the ground in relation to the road.
In relation to the road, you're
That's right.
exactly right. Yeah.
I would suggest that we use a different term than sign height, because a 100-foot sign not being a 100-foot sign would confuse every engineer in the world, at least this engineer.
Yeah.
Because anyway, I would just use a different word, or define it. Because if you go back, if you go back to that picture where you showed the A and the 20 feet and the 25 feet.
The way I read it.
So it says A, and then there's a 25 on the other side. Is that A? Is that B? Is that?
That's B. It's just the exhibit.
Yeah.
It's a second
It's
exhibit.
20 or
Okay.
25.
Yeah.
The sign itself is 25 because of the grade.
But see, in this particular case, the sign height is B.
Above.
It's 30 feet above grade. It's not 20. It's 30.
The grade.
But in
is-
the other one,
Yeah.
it's 20.
Yeah, the grade is the property that it's on.
Right.
So you start from the property that it's on.
No, that's sign height. That's above grade. No, above grade is above the main highway lanes. So that's what I'm trying to ask. Is it the number of feet above the highway or the number of feet that it's actually sticking out of the ground?
The number of feet that is sticking out of the ground, that's where you start.
I think we need to go highway.
I think it needs to, I think that's the whole reason we were talking, is because it's like at eye level, if I'm on the highway, I don't care if it dipped down and dipped back up. I'm looking at what my height is. So if you put a 100-foot sign everywhere in downtown Belton, it would look like this
It does. yes.
instead of like this.
It won't ever
I
look
think it
like
has to
that.
be above grade.
It won't ever
No,
look like
it
that.
can if you define it
Yeah.
as
You
above.
would have to pick an elevation.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
above
The
it.
highway.
Mean least, you have to pick an elevation above.
Okay,
that.
so if you're a
In some
pilot,
cases, you might
if
be
you're
at
a
10 feet.
pilot, if you're a pilot and you're flying at 1,000 feet above ground level,
Yeah.
or if you're a pilot flying 1,000 feet above sea level, it matters. 1,000 feet above sea level,
Yes, it does.
plant yourself in the ground somewhere before you
Right.
get to Lubbock.
Yeah.
Right. So what we're saying is, I think it needs to be above the driving elevation, that there's a standard height at which I'm going to see signs if I'm driving through. I don't care if it's in a hole or on a hill.
That's very challenging because the highway as a whole for topography drops.
That's
like
correct.
at Nolan Creek.
And guess what?
stuff. So you couldn't keep a
Correct.
consistent
can.
elevation.
You can.
Well, you could theoretically.
No, it's not theoretically. That's how we do that's how we do city.
Right.
That's how we figure out where we flow. That's why we figure out it's this terrain. That's why we do the
Yeah,
topography
yeah,
map. That's why we do 100-year
So,
floodplain.
the
It's
ordinance-
all based on a mean sea level.
Sure.
And we
sure.
know what those are when we do these grades. So if they're going to put a sign in, we know what the grade is.
Yes, so you calculate, the way we do it, we calculate it from the elevation of the property where the sign is going to be built. And then we go from there, whether it's above or below
But
the sign.
if you're calculating where the signs, it doesn't matter. If we say it's a 100-foot sign, you just put a 100-foot sign anywhere you want to, on a hill, in a valley. It's a 100-foot sign.
if it's on a hill, yes, it would be higher than the 100
Then
feet.
you don't have to do any calculation. It's just a 100-foot sign.
Yeah.
You go down to Walmart, buy a 100-foot pole and slap your logo on the top of it.
Mm,
But it could be 140 feet above the ground, above
main
the.
lane.
exactly.
main lane.
Yeah.
Or it could be
exactly.
10 feet
Right,
above the
right,
main
right.
lane.
Right.
But I think what we're looking at, I think the whole reason for coming back again is we want some consistency in what you see, right? Consistency in what you see
From the highway.
from the highway.
Okay.
Correct. The way this reads, you have a 100-foot sign on I-35. You can get a credit to make it the actual pole longer if you're below main lane. You don't, we're not going to take away height if you're above main lane, correct?
Correct.
Right.
You're right.
Okay. So to David's point, if instead of the reference being the base of the sign, if the reference was, hey, we're gonna go stick a grade stick on the main lane of the highway, whatever elevation that shows, the top of our sign.
And is that immediate?
Should
Is that
be
the
50,
75 or
100 feet above that point.
Yeah.
So is that point measure immediately adjacent to the sign?
Well,
Well,
I
that's
mean-
not where you're gonna be looking at it, but
So
I think you would have
So
to, you have to be perpendicular.
the small secular in Austin built a large foundation for their tower to make sure that the tower was not taller than the Capitol while making the tower taller than the Capitol. The current president of the United States made a big mound in his backyard to make sure that the flagpole met the flagpole height, but was higher than the flagpole that was allowed. So we use grade to get around rules. You just build a big berm and then plant a
sign on top of it.
put a sign on top of it. If we just were, I think that's, at least from my perspective, I think it's like whatever it is, a 50, 60, 75, 100, it should just be that above the road.
So
I
you
think-
would suggest, let's say we did 100 in this scenario that's on the screen where
Be a 90-foot pole.
the property is 10 feet above main grade, their max sign actual pole would be 90 feet.
90 feet.
Right.
So
It's
you're
100
you're
feet.
debiting them for the, do we know how many properties on a hill we have compared to the,
I was gonna say,
or how high those highest parts are?
The majority of them are
going
gonna
to
be
be below once the new interstate goes.
what I mean,
Majority of
on I-14,
McDonald's
there's
might
some
be the
pretty
exception.
high sides where, I mean, if that's 50, it might be the sign sitting on the ground on some of those. I mean,
Yeah, as you get down to Nolanville Hill, and you get some of those hills on 14, or if you look at like Tahoyah Road on one side of the road versus the other side of the road.
Bob, can you go back to the number 2? I mean, I'm sorry, the number 1.
I mean, to your point though, if you were up on a cliff,
Which one?
yeah, you would install a sign
Is
on the
there
ground
number
on your
one?
cliff, but it'd still be visible from the
Oh.
main lane because it's 100 feet above the main lane. If that makes sense.
I mean, that makes sense to me right there. What are we?
Is it a 25 or a 20?
That's the original question.
It's a 25-foot sign
What they've presented.
because they've accounted for the 5 feet under the main lanes. That's how I see that.
That's exactly.
So what are we talking about then? It looks good to me.
Instead of going for grade, is anybody interested in doing it by elevation?
That's part of what.
It is great because
Well, he's talking, but,
down to the south end of I-35, you can build a 200-foot sign.
but elevation's different than grade because highways create different false elevations.
So again, that's why I asked the question, is because it says the sign can be 20 feet, right? It's a 20-foot sign, but it's really a 25-foot sign. So I'm asking, which is it? Is it a 20-foot sign, which is what this says? It says overall sign height is 25, but only 20 feet above the main lanes. Is that a 20-foot height or a 25-foot height?
Depends on the private property that's being built on and accounting for the footage between the main lane and where the sign will be placed.
David, when TxDOT.
It's this, we're talking about the same thing, and I feel like this
TxDOT
is
prints
needs to
their
be pulled.
schematic
This is ridiculous.
in the middle of the lanes or the express lane, whatever we've seen, they're gonna have a measurement that says 530.00. And that is the elevation of the road. That sign, if you were to stick TxDOT's pole on top of the 100-foot sign, that measurement should read 630.00. It's
Yeah.
100 feet exactly.
To John's
above
point, it's the
main lane.
elevation, it's the true elevation based on the elevation of the road.
Correct.
At the
There's
end
no
of the day.
having to measure.
And there's no, it's just, we go I mean, every time we do a road, every time we build a foundation, engineers go and put in stakes.
If we had a survey guy in the room, it'd probably help out a lot.
Yeah, but it doesn't make sense to say, okay, every sign height cannot stick, you can do any sign height you want as long as it doesn't go over 630 feet elevation.
No, no.
Because then McDonald's is gonna have a 20-foot sign,
No.
and the gas station on Amity is gonna have a 300-foot sign.
No, it's 100 feet over whatever the
The
road-
main lane.
But
of the main lane of the road.
But John suggested using elevation as the standard.
No, you can't.
Right.
You can't,
I
because
wanna
in
make sure we're not
Belgium,
going-
yeah, no, you can't. It would be the elevation, we'd have to be it's an elevation based on.
Main lanes.
Hmm.
Let me just tell you where I am right now. I think this is reasonable how they're showing to measure for ones that are below grade. I want our businesses to have the highest signs possible. So I'm not offended if it's 100 foot and they also get another 50 feet because they're up here. Because signs do matter for businesses, visibility matters, especially on the interstates. And so for me, being able to see that sign before there's an exit, that's how family, personally, when we're traveling, when the kids get hungry, we say, hey, next Golden Arches we see, we're gonna exit and go eat there.
If you have to-
And
if this-
just a minute, let me finish real quick. And so because of that, and with all the changes we're gonna have coming up to the interstate, with exit potentially being even moved further back, I'm
won't see
okay
the
with the
sign.
recommendation that they're making. My issue is really, the only issue I have with the recommendation is I think the 50-foot areas should be taller. I think we should have higher signs there because that's only gonna grow with the interstate. And we want people getting off in Belton. We don't want them going to Temple or Salado the other way to exit and eat. We want them to get off in Belton, and that only helps our businesses. So that's kind of where I am right now.
With the layout of I-35, I just don't think if you exit 121, you're not exiting because you saw a sign, I don't think. Or if you're exiting through DPS to come to Belton, you're not exiting because you saw a Whataburger sign. I just think the signs will not be near.
That
as
assumes the
effective.
sign is on the current property.
And that's an off premise. I mean, I think here's the challenge. We're getting into a lot of preference, and we need to kind of stick, and this is just my opinion. Whether it's 50 or 100, it needs to be consistent. It can't just, and that's why I think it should be above the main lane of the road, so many feet above the main lane of the road. And then we can argue, do we want 100 or 500, whatever. But I think we just need to be consistent because you can game the system.
But I think that makes sense for the very reason that there are signs. That is that from being on the road, you're trying to get intervisibility to customers in. And so the only standard that makes sense is to measure it from the lane.
Okay, I'll tell you this right now. I'm on Google Maps Street View. I cannot see the Bucky sign when it's time to exit going northbound. They would have to have a 200-foot tall sign to your point, to be able to say, oh, there's a Bucky sign, I'm gonna exit.
No, they do it with billboards.
Correct. They do it with billboard.
Right,
visual
and the
marketing.
text dot sign.
Yeah,
and the
it's
text
like if you're coming southbound out of Belton with an exit at, God forbid, Horny Toad, you're not gonna see any sign in Belton.
Yeah.
When you already have to exit.
Yeah, and I think ultimately, there's always a tension within, we need to let people do what they need to do, what's best for their business, that can then conflict with what's best for the community as far as, we'll call it pollution.
What does Scenic City say about?
Oh, like Scenic City's like no digital signs, no signs, like nothing.
I mean, like if they had a recommendation for a sign height on I-35,
They would leave that entirely to the local community. They would not venture into that.
And they've come a long way.
Yeah. All right, do you guys have enough information to make a motion and act or not?
Where I get hung up is the difference for the 100 and the 50, because why is it that just that one little area we're allowing 100, if we are going to allow 100? I think, as you were saying, consistency. I don't see just because you're on the other 14, you shouldn't have the same visibility and same sign height as the other parts of the interstate Belton. So that's where I'm getting hung up on it. I almost feel like if you're on the interstate and you're in Belton, we should have a standard sign height. I don't think one area should be 100, one should be 50. I'd rather have 75 everywhere than 150.
For 75 everywhere.
From
the meeting, from the.
Next month, we'll bring it back and.
I think
Well, this won't trump Imagine
We'd have
Belton.
to
We'll have to
change the ordinance.
change that if that's really.
we have to go through that process again. So, yeah, we can.
75 everywhere too.
But it needs to be sensible I agree with the grade.
Wait, the grade of where the pole sits or the main lane?
No, the highway.
The highway, like existing.
Adding 5 or subtracting 5,
One.
you know, even use the game
That number one, it'll be the same. It's just the side, the height of the pole where I'm recommending a change. But it'll account for the grade below main lanes like you've demonstrated in that existing example number one.
Yes.
So
So if you want to measure from the main lanes, that's just a policy decision.
Yeah.
So just tell us.
So I think,
And if you want to vary-
before we have a motion, we need to just take a straw poll. Are we all on the same page that we're all comfortable measuring from the main grade? And that may mean that you get a bonus poll, or it may mean you get less than a
Yes.
shorter poll.
I'm for measuring from the grade, but it's hard to say, and I'm for additional if you're below the grade. But it's hard for me to say I'm for a deduction if you're above the interstate. Because it all depends on, as we were saying, if say the ground is 100 feet up and it's 75.
Well, in reality, the roads, it's not. It's a good hypothetical, but that doesn't exist.
I don't.
No, it
I don't know
doesn't.
what it
It
is,
doesn't
but-
exist. I mean, the closest you're going to get is probably. I'm trying to think. It's as you go towards Nolanville. And I think Tahoyah Road, that hill,
Messer Ranch.
and Mesa Ranch, somewhere along there, it's kind of high, but it's so high. If you're 20 feet up, you're seeing that sucker. And especially if you're a Messer on that hill, you coming from Colleen, you see it from Colleen.
and we're increasing that from 20 to 50 in this recommendation.
current recommendation. Yeah.
So
it's more than
if you're
double the
if you're
current.
driving on I-35 and you go under Loop 121, there's an overpass. I'm looking at Google Maps right now. There's an overpass that goes over I-35, and that's 17 feet clearance. So, like the Valero that sits up kind of across from the Expo Center, it's 20 feet higher than the main lanes. If we did 75, they could still have a 55-foot sign.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is not a short sign.
No, that's
Right.
and
If that's.
And the
if you're
Ranger-
saying on our part, you're basically saying 20 feet is pretty much the max around there.
right now it's at 20, and we're going more than double that.
Well, no, I'm saying the grade above I-35.
Yeah, it's 20 feet. I mean, most
So like
most hills. I mean, most.
McDonald's be where it is. You think that's?
That's,
Yeah,
I mean,
way above.
again, it's about 20 feet, because if you think about overpasses you can just look at the number. It's usually 20, 25 feet is usually the standard grade difference.
Mhm.
So Ranger gas station that's going in South Belton, right? Have we approved a sign for that one?
I believe so. Yeah, we have like a standard 20-foot sign, but they'd like to come back and ask for a tall.
Well, I'm curious.
Study if they haven't come back.
Okay, well, I just was one,
I think they're
the
waiting.
reason I'm saying is we go off and do all this and then we've already approved something that we have to come, anyway, I just wanted to at least kind of have that as an idea.
Well, whatever decision you make, there's going to be somebody out there that's going to ask for an exception.
Oh, always,
You know.
yeah.
Can I make a motion?
Just make the best one you can.
Okay.
But whatever you do, if you're gonna go to grade, 90 degrees from between grade and the road and the sign.
All right.
Yeah.
We're gonna do a right angle.
I'm gonna make a motion
It's fine.
that we enact this ordinance with a 75-foot pole sign height that's measured from the grade of the main lane to the interstate, 90 degrees from the sign location on the property. Whether that creates an actual taller sign or shorter sign than 75 feet, it would always be measured from the main lane, the main lane of the interstate grade. And that would be throughout the city of Belton, where the current recommendation is both 100 and 50, would be 75 throughout. Is that motion clear?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to standardize our pole sign height ordinance along 35 and 14 to be 75 feet above the grade of the main lane at a perpendicular angle from where the location of the sign is to the main lane.
Great.
And that's everywhere on the interstate.
Yeah, I said inter 5 and 14.
That doesn't include the Imagine Belton area, which.
No, yeah, we
I'd
just,
like us
that's
to
interstate
revisit.
35 and 14.
Yeah.
You can't do it, man.
Nope.
No, we didn't. It's just,
I think we can bring that back and have a quick vote on that one. Yeah.
or not.
Love your optimism. I just.
Right, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions before we vote? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, passes unanimously.
See how you.
Fantastic.
Boom.
You should have said that from the beginning.
Right. All right.
Fire station.
Receive a presentation and discuss a future fire station needs assessment. Chief Fontenot.
Mayor, council, I'll make it easy on you tonight. Not as hard as figuring out sign heights, hopefully.
So how many minutes from this station and how do you count the minutes? And I'm sorry.
Rhombuses and.
Yeah.
Okay, just to give you a little background, Sam and I worked really hard on trying to find a great spot for the future for a fire station. And we worked really hard with the county and got what we feel is a very appropriate piece of land. So now it's time to evaluate the configurations, what that's going to look like in the future. Some of the things that we want to evaluate is time, of course. In our business, time is very important to us. Also, the equality and the efficiency of where we're going to put our next fire station. We are trying to address some of the growth, especially in the south side of town. So when we're addressing this, we have to look at some standards, some recognized standards. So just a little bit of education. We're going to use some NFPA standards. Now, NFPA is a nonprofit organization, but they write a lot of standard books. And they have standards for fire protection, life safety, electrical codes. As an example, in the county, if a county doesn't approve their own set of codes, then the state has adopted NFPA 101, which is their code. So although we're not an NFPA does a lot within the state of Texas. It's also used in legal proceedings and liability claims. ISO, which we get ISO rated, uses a lot of NFPA guidelines and standards. So we'll be utilizing some of that to evaluate where we are. Also, some ISO recommendations. We're going to be using some ISO recommendations. Now, just to refresh your memory, ISO is that company that comes and evaluates us, kind of helps us set our insurance rates. Right now, we're at a 3. Temple and Colleen are at a 1. 1 being the best, 10 being the worst. So we're currently at a 3. So the question is, how do we get to a 1? Well, to answer that question is we need more stations, personnel, and a training field. But that's not going to be asked for tonight. We're just to answer that question if you had it. The PPC rate, what we're talking about when it comes to that 1 to 10, and they do closely align with an FPA. So here's some of those standards we talked about. Turnout time is important to us. That's what we can control. Our turnout time is something that we as a fire department can control this. That's the time it takes from the alarm to go off to the guys in the truck and actually rolling out the door. We monitor that very closely to make sure our turnout times stay within that 80 seconds standard. And we hit that consistently. Another one is travel distance or travel time. NFPA says about 4 minutes or less is a good travel time, is the standard for career departments. And they're not saying you have to hit that every time, but 90% of the time you need to hit that 40 or that 4 minutes. And of course, ISO ratings. ISO redefines that 4 minutes to 1.5 mile polygon. They say within a 1.5 mile polygon, you should be able to get there within 4 minutes. And that's kind of what we're judged and evaluated off of when they come do their evaluation. They also have a different standard for a ladder truck, but people get this confused. It's a 2.5 mile polygon for a ladder truck, but that's 2.5 miles to the nearest 3 or greater story building, a building that would need it. If it's running a regular calls, it's still considered an engine. So it still needs to be within that 1.5 miles versus a 2.5 mile. The 2.5 mile is really those higher multiple story buildings is what that's judged off of. Texas best practices also mentions the 4 minutes travel time, and then community risk assessment. And we are up to date on our community risk assessment, and we're doing that very well. So it mentioned in there in NFPA 1710, 4 minutes to get the first engine on scene, and then 8 minutes to get a full firefighting force. So that full alarm is what they call that. What that actually is that's 15 personnel, which consists of 2 engines, a ladder truck, and then your command and safety officers is what NFPA 1710 recommends, about 15 personnel. Currently we have 2 trucks. So we're not able to meet that full alarm. That's why we have automatic aid. That's why Temple's on our box alarms. If we have a structure fire, that's why we're getting aid into the city, is to try to meet this. So we talked about the 1.5 mile polygon. That's road based. That's basically you draw a line using your roadways to measure that out 1.5 miles. It is required or suggested for ISO. If you want to get your full points, you're within that 1.5 miles. And it does reflect a true reach, not just a simple radius. Although we do use a 1.5 mile radius also, but that 1.5 mile radius is kind of to help quickly identify gaps in your service. And that's more, the radius is more as the crow flies. So what's our goal? Our goal right now is 5.5 minutes of response time. That's 80 seconds to get in the truck and get out the door. I mean, and again, we're hitting those pretty commonly. And then we want a 4-minute travel time. That gives us about 10 seconds of traffic adjustments and things. That's where we came up with that 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Station location is key for that 4-minute travel time. And we want to make sure that all of our high risk areas are covered the best we could possibly get them. So this is our current configuration. We show in both the 1.5 mile polygon, which is the shaded area, and the radius. So you can see when you're building your polygons and looking at station locations, you actually want a little bit of that overlap in case that one station is gone on one call. You can get another station there quickly too. You may not be able to get it in there within that 4 minutes, but you want a little bit of overlap there, a little redundancy. And as you can see here, the core of the city, the downtown area, and a lot of the residential area that's up north of town is well covered. But the south part of town is just outside that polygons and radius. And what makes it so difficult getting down there and what affects a lot of our response time getting to the south part of town is we're crossing highways and very busy intersections. Think of 121 that we're going through, 93 that we're going through, Main Street and 35, that area. Trying to get to that south area is a very congested area. And then we have I-35 and 14 that's going to get torn up and cause us more issues. We know that during construction, we're probably going to have some extended delays. And then the growth that happens after those things have been expanded may cause us some increase in demands. So are y'all familiar with the property at the Justice Center where we're proposing? Okay, so we took and we got like 3 different options for you guys to kind of consider. This option would be to relocate Central Station to the Justice Center and not have this current Central Station where it's at. And what we're seeing there is that it opens up a large gap in the center of town, our downtown area that's outside the polygon and the radius. And so there's no overlap there. In this situation, if this was the situation that we would get into, what we would probably do, because there is no overlap, anytime a station goes on a call, that other station would move into a central location. So as an example, if Station 2 had a call and they left, then that Justice Center station would move toward the center of town to back cover their area, their own area. So we would constantly be moving both those trucks. And again, because we're maintaining just a 2-station situation, we'd also rely heavily on automatic and mutual aid still for our structure fires. The other option would be to maintain the current central station and rebuild or build that Justice Center station, have 3 stations. This option says the central fire station would be more of a quick response station with a captain and a driver. I call it an ICT, incident command technician is what you call them. They would respond in a quick response truck to all the medicals in the center of town. They would also be responding as mobile commands. Whenever there are larger incidents, they would be a mobile command officer. About 65% of our call volume is medical calls. So 65% of that open area in the center of town, if we went to 2 stations, would still be covered. And then any calls that would require a fire apparatus would come from out of district back into the center of town. This still relies on automatic aid. It does require 3 lieutenant positions to be established at a cost of about $403,000 for those lieutenant positions, because those would be new positions. Doing the math on this, the tax rate from if we did this today and it went to effect today, the tax rate would cost about 1.6 cents on the tax rate. Another option is to fully staff all 3 stations. This would reduce the amount of reliance we have on mutual and automatic aid. It would cover all 3 of those areas. The majority of that, what did somebody call it earlier, the dome? We would cover that dome pretty well, but it's costly. It's a 9 additional FTEs at a cost of over $1 million. $62,570. And that's equivalent to about 4.25 cents. But that would be if we put it on today. Now, remember, tax rates will change throughout the next years. If we started building the station today, if we got in touch with an architect and started step one today, we would still be 3 years out on this fire station. It takes a while to get through that design phase, the bond phase, and the construction phase. So we're still looking at about 3 years. So tax rates, how it would affect it today would be 4.25 cents, but what that looks like in the future is hard to tell.
And these are operational costs, not the cost of construction.
Correct.
So it's not the
Yes,
fully
that's
burdened.
just operational. We'll talk about construction costs in a minute, and I was floored whenever I did this.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
On the operational cost, what, if you fully staffed 3 stations,
Mhm.
what additional equipment is needed?
We would, in reality, all we need is another engine. We could do
Because Mitchell would get.
I need a reserve engine, right? So we have enough engines for 3 stations now. But I would have no engine, so we would need to think about that. Either keeping this ladder truck that we currently have, keeping in mind that ladder truck is 25, 26 years old, keeping it and helping that process, or moving on down the line and buying another truck and putting one of our older trucks, probably our 2015, in reserve status. Because we obviously need a reserve truck, because about 60 to 70% of the time, something's getting worked on.
What's
on
the
one of
lead
those
time on
trucks.
the engine versus the aerial we already purchased?
Lead time on an engine is much better because we can go with a stock engine that are coming in, that are already in line. We could get one of those.
Within the construction window?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And this operational cost, is that just the cost of the personnel? That's not.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
just
that's
just
not
the cost of personnel.
Utilities and.
No, that's just personnel.
That's just, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Just a salary cost. All right, so let's compare some response times and see what may work and what may not work. That first line there is our current configurations. Anywhere you see that red box, what that means is that the majority of that district is beyond that 4 point. If it's yellow, we can get to that box within 4 minutes, but we can't get to all the box in 4 minutes. So that second number you see there is the furthest distance to that district from a fire station. So as an example, in box 3, district 1, we can get to some of that within that 4 minutes, but to get to the furthest point, it's 7 minutes. That makes sense on the numbers there? So if we replace the current central station and with the Justice Center, you can see we're really robbing Peter to pay Paul on that one. But adding that Justice Center helps us out a lot. It really helps us out to get to the majority of that city, that dome area within the 4 minute time. And that answers that question there. If we do the minimum staffing at our central station, where we're just putting a captain and a driver, we're looking at a cost of about $120,000 for a vehicle for them. If we went to fully staffed, it's another about $850,000 for an engine. This is our current run numbers and times. The blues are for each year are the producers of run volume per year. And you can see that box 3, district 1 consistently makes the top 3 districts every year. But if you look at their response times, that travel time, in red. Now, remember, that's the travel time. That's not the response time. That's actual on the street time. Those 3 red boxes are beyond a 6-minute mark. So
Just go back to your map and show them what those areas are.
sure.
The boxes.
So the blue area on this map would be box 3. The red area, that's box 1, and the green areas, that's box 2. That's based off the station location. Station 2 covers all the green area. Central Station currently covers the red and the blue area. And then the tan areas are those outline areas, and we can talk about that in a minute.
So box 3 station, what was it, 1?
Box 3, District 1 is that dark blue area.
Just the center area.
Yes, that's where the station would be box 3, District 1. So to talk about those outlining areas, 1720 in ISO says that your response time in a low risk, low density area, and they define low risk, low density as less than 500 people per square mile. And in both those areas, we have less than that in population. So they recommend a 14-minute response time in those areas. That's why we're not looking at trying to put fire stations down by Salado or over by Nolanville. We have that 14-minute kind of buffer there. Now here's the hard part to swallow. At least it was for me. When we built Station 2 out on Sparta Road, it was $1.91 million for both the station and a ladder truck. So the station cost approximately $1.36 million. That's about $182 a square foot. When we went and did this evaluation, I have some people I worked with in the past, Joiner Architects down in the Houston area. I called them up. I said, hey, I need some data. Can you help me out a little bit? And so he got me this data back. In 2010, it was 320 a square foot. And that consistently moved up to this year, which is 745 a square foot. So I said, no, that can't be right. So we went and I'll just go to this next page here. We looked at 2 different stations that were just in this area that just either are getting built right now or just got done. Round Rock Station 10 is 13,000 square foot, almost 14,000 square foot, and costs $9.2 million. And that's about $66 a square foot. So I called, or 660 a square. So I called Round Rock. They already had the land. That's why the cost per square footage is down. They already own that.
So when you're saying per square foot, you're talking about the cost of the land.
That's all in costs. That's construction costs, that's land costs, that's outfitting the station with furniture. That's everything. All in costs is what they call that. And then this is Waco's future station. It's 8,600 square feet at 6 million, which is right on track, about 700 a square foot. So if we go back to this slide, right now, Station 2 is 7,800 square feet. And that the cost of that today would be 5.36 million. If we went for like a Taj Mahal type station, if you wanted to build a just huge command center, huge 15,000 square foot, you're looking at 11.75 million for 15,000 square feet. The bad part about that cost is look at the rate of increase every year. If you do that annually, that rate of increase, man, I don't know where we'll be in 5 years from now, you know?
Could be cheaper.
It could be, or it could be 1,400 a square foot, you know?
Usually everything's relative. tax
Yeah.
base usually keeps up with the construction cost.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
You tell me one, I just want to
Sure.
understand, because this isn't making sense to me.
All right.
Cost. Tell me again, when you say 700 a square foot, tell me everything that's in there.
That would cover the land, the architectural fees, the building costs, the furniture.
Does that include the engine?
That does not include the engine. Yeah, no apparatus is included in that cost, but that's a move-in ready. You move in, just bring
And a
engine
stocked
with you.
refrigerator with mac and cheese.
Yeah. Ramen noodles.
Air mattresses,
I
baby.
mean, you're, the main things, you need living quarters and you need a garage, right?
Yeah, and some office space, living quarters, kind of day rooms. A training room is important.
Parking.
But you know, the average fire station is right around 10,000 square foot, and that works out pretty well. You could go below that, to 8,000. I'll tell you, Station 2 is kind of small. We need some more base space and more. As you could tell, we had to build a gym behind it because it just didn't have that room. We would want those type of features built into the next station.
Because what my comparison is, what would it cost to buy a house on some land for living quarters?
Yeah.
And put a metal building for garage space next to it?
Yeah, yeah.
Because in theory, you can do that for under $1 million.
It's a turnout time effect. I mean, you have to be with the trucks. So any other extra door, run across a field.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, you're just saying
I'm saying
just-
with the
yeah.
house right next to it.
One of the largest costs on the cost of a fire station is the concrete cost, because it has to be reinforced and a lot thicker than what you would normally pour on like a house, as an example. So a lot of that cost is concrete cost. Yeah. So summary of findings, current location is results in a little bit longer response time than what we want in the south part of town. Replacing Central with the Justice Center opens up that central area and may increase the response times back to box 1, but in turn, it'll reduce response times back to box 3. A 3-station model may result in a more reliable and equitable coverage to the whole core of the city. So when you're looking at making a recommendation, there's some things we want you to consider: the city growth trends, developing areas, cost versus coverage trade-offs, maintaining that downtown rapid response, and then operational resilience for multiple calls. And we're seeing that more and more often now, the multiple calls at one time. And what we're having to do is either release a truck early or bring a truck in from a different district to come in, or call mutual aid. And that's happening more often.
Is that typically due to I-35 issues that when
It really
you're having
is.
to get pushed on multiple calls?
Yeah, I-35 and 14 causes us a lot of heartache.
Has there been any conversation, not to take this off task, but has there been any conversation with our neighbors from Troy to Coppers Cove down to Salado to have kind of a interstate response, or with Bell County? Because you think about that, it's just a regional issue. That, like, this morning, we started the day with blockage of 35 in Belton. We ended the day with blockage on 35 in front of Bucky's.
Yep.
I mean, it's just two different municipalities, same issue. And almost all of the resources are directing traffic. And that's all, that's pretty much, it's one car that's toasted and just directing traffic.
The 35 expansion has brought those talks about.
Okay.
So at a chief regional level, we're starting to really evaluate and make some recommendations to the county to help us out, and to TxDOT. You know, a lot of the tollways in the Houston area have their own response teams, but they're tollways, so they can afford that.
Well, honestly, what would be great, you think about if we had a station at the Justice Complex, if there was a county vehicle or two that they could respond out to Nolanville or to Salado or to Temple. And they're just centrally located, and they're just backup to allow the Temple engine to be on site for 4 minutes, and then they can move on in Bell County.
What would
It-
really be great if they had a tow truck. The county had a tow
Yeah.
truck to where they can get there and pull those vehicles off to the side of the road. Let us clear that interstate even faster.
Yep. Okay. Sorry for the distraction.
No. But, of course, closing statements. Remember, our goal was a timely, reliable, equitable emergency services. We really think about that, acceptable response times, the future growth, and then the funding for the station and the personnel costs that come along with that. Any questions? Any more questions?
Is mutual aid really mutual, or does it cost us? Like, we're not having to pay people back for helping us or vice versa.
It's mutual. No, there's no payback. We do give mutual aid quite a bit and automatic aid quite a bit. But we get it quite a bit also.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking because when you're comparing, if you staff a station because you need to cover all your very own incidences or paying for mutual aid or somebody else to cover for us, then you throw that into the comparison. But
No, there's mutual aid agreements, countywide and statewide mutual aid agreements that restrict us from charging anything.
on your staffing 3 stations, whether limited or full,
Mm-hmm.
if central is restrictive space wise, which we've heard before,
Yep.
how do you staff that station with the newer, bigger vehicles? Like,
We would probably maintain an engine at that station only, and it would not get much bigger than what it is. If that was fully staffed, it would be the engine and a blocker truck is probably what we would keep there if it was fully staffed. If it's going to be minimal staffed, we're going to keep the reserve engine there, a quick response truck, and a blocker there. We still plan on taking that blocker out of Central, either way.
and I just want to say, appreciate all the legwork, and I think you guys did this in-house with all your polygons and times, and
We did.
and didn't use software or consultants, so appreciate the the legwork on that. So
Yeah, and we want to make sure we get this in front of you as budgets coming around, things to consider. It may not happen this year, may not happen next year, but it's gonna happen. It'll need to happen. So those are type of things you have to consider when y'all are looking at that. So we wanted to make sure you guys got all the information you needed.
yeah, at this rate, I don't know how to do it or when to do it, but I think on the win question, if you can beat I-35 imploded on the center site one way or another, I think that 121 access is not really being touched, which would get you over to that side of town a lot easier than coming from Central and trying to get through whatever that access looks like. So
Yeah. Anything else?
All right.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Oh, actually, sorry, I did have one more question.
Yes.
Were you're talking about this with just fire, are you using EMS? Is EMS included in this calculation?
They are being considered, and I'm working with Matt, the new EMS chief in this area, and letting him know the Justice Center location versus this current Central. He's starting to run his numbers to see if we were to move out to the Justice Center, would they rather stay in Central? Is that where their call volume is, or would it benefit the city to move them out to the Justice Center? So yeah, they're definitely a consideration.
Are their time requirements similar to what fire is?
Their time requirements are 7.5 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chief, if we were to build a third station at the Justice Center, deciding what to do with the central station, I know we have to decide whether we're gonna close it or do a rapid response or fully staffed, but that could also be something where we stair step that. We say, well, for this go round, we think we can afford to do the rapid response, and later on, if we say, well, that's not cutting it, we need to fully staff it. I mean, that can be done in phases too, right?
Yeah,
Because it wouldn't change the station
Sam actually talked about that in length and in the study itself, it says in there, hey, we recommend, the command staff recommends that you look at this as temporary and know that it could be stepped up to a fully staffed station at some point. Yeah, that would be pretty easy to do. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Yep. All right. That concludes the regular portion of our council meeting on Tuesday, February 10th. The last item is an executive session. We will be taking no action afterwards. So everyone present that's not involved in the executive session may leave, but I will read these for the record, and we'll take a pause for the cause. So anybody on council who wishes to step out for a couple of minutes may do so while I read this in the record. Item 12 is executive session pursuant to the provision of the Open Meetings Law, Chapter 551, Government Code, Vernon, Texas codes, annotated in accordance with the authority contained in Section 551.071, consultation with an attorney. And the other is like it, Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property. All right, thank you guys, and have a great evening.